Hi, Jody. Hey, guys. Are you guys ready to ask all your burning pet photography questions today? Hi. So I'm just we have a minute until we start answering questions. So I hope you're ready because there's a lot of questions. I have a cup of coffee here. I hope you have something to drink too because we have a lot to talk about today, and I'm so excited to do this. This is my very first time, I think, doing an Instagram Live answering questions like this. So I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous. So be nice, please. Hi, Gonza. So yeah, I had a lot of people submit questions on direct message and in the post. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them today just because there's kind of a lot, but we'll try. And as you're watching this, if you have questions that come up, just type them in. I would love to know what all your questions are about this. So for those of you that are here and watching, are you currently a pet photographer or do you want to be a pet photographer? Where are you in your career? Any responses? Okay, well, hi, good morning, everybody. It is 11 o'clock, and I'm gonna do my first Instagram Live today answering questions all about pet photography. And I'm really curious, I just asked, I don't know if any of you wanna chime in, but I'm curious where you are in your careers as pet photographers. Is it a new thing you're doing? Are you currently an established pet photographer? You just take photos of your own pets, Maxie, cool. So, I think a lot of these questions are geared to people, they're from people who I think maybe are aspiring pet photographers. And I'm just gonna start because there's a lot. So these questions all came from Hoyce. Hi, Hoyce. She has 5 really good questions. So I'm just gonna run through them. The first one is, what do you do to get the animals comfortable with the camera? That's a really good question because I think that is honestly, 75% of what makes good animal photography is how you're getting them comfortable with you and the camera. It is not about gear. The gear helps, it's a tool, but your essence, the thing you are bringing to the table is what is most important. So what I do before I even start shooting is I just put my camera bag down. I walk into the house, I put my camera bag to the side and I just get to know the dog. And I'm there noticing all the amazing, cute things about them that make them unique. And I'm really just trying to get a feel for their essence. Are they crazy? Are they shy? Are they a clown? Are they super wise? Because all these things are what you're going to be capturing, hopefully, with your camera later on. So first tip, just walk in, connect with the animal, get to know the animal. I spend probably 15 minutes doing this, and it's a really good time to get to know the owner too, because the way you connect with the owner is actually really important. If you make the owner feel comfortable, the dog feels comfortable. So that's really, really important. The next thing I always tell people is that pet photography is kind of like a mix of photography and training. So what I'm doing as I'm working with the dog is actually training them, and I am rewarding them and keeping them motivated using positive techniques and rewarding behavior that I like that is helping with the shoot. So if a dog runs up to me and they're being bossy and bark, 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 give me treats, that's not when I give them treats. I give them treats when they're being very calm and looking at me. If I ask them to sit and they sit, I pay them. We call it paying the model. So what you want to do is bring really, really high reward treats with you. What's high reward? Stinky. So stinky and like meat based. So I'll bring duck, I'll bring chicken, not the actual cooked stuff, but pre-made treats. I love Play-Doh's treats. I love Stella and Chewy's. And I'll bring a couple of them and I'll rotate as we go. As the dog seems like they're starting to get a little bit bored of what I'm doing, I'll switch. And you can also tell the owner, hey, please put some of your dog's favorite high reward treats to the side, whether it's bacon or boiled chicken, but please have that ready for me. And after you've sort of established, getting to know the animal and the owner a little bit, you want to just see how they do with basic training. Have them sit, have them stay, and have them get used to working with you. If they sit and they're calm, you pay them. You start bringing out the camera now and you take a couple shots, and if they're sit and they're calm, you pay them. And you start really getting into a flow where they sit and look at the camera, you take a couple pictures and you pay. And the dog picks up on this so fast. Dogs are smart and they know what you want them to do. And I would say within 5-10 minutes, dogs who owners think they're never going to pose and do anything, trust me, they're going to get into it and they're going to know. What do you do though if an animal is shy? Oftentimes, if you have a really, really, really shy pet, even just the sound of the shutter clicking is terrifying for them. It's scary. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get to know the animal, like I said before, without even taking out my camera. I'll let them get used to me, and then I'll ease my camera out, show them the camera. If they're calm and they're responding well, I pay them. And then what I'll do is I'll start clicking the shutter, click, 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 click. A lot of times they'll be like, oh my God, what the fuck was that? And they'll freak out, but then you pay them and you really start building up their confidence, get them acclimated to this clunky thing in front of them and this thing that's making noise, and you pay them. And I think that's really confidence building for a dog. You want to keep doing that and they'll get used to it. Sometimes with shy dogs, it's taken me an hour, but obviously pet photography is all about patience. So have a lot of patience as you're doing this. Sorry, I'm looking at my next questions, and you're going to start to get into a flow. So do you have any tips or tricks for getting them to look at the camera? Yes, I have a ton. And I have shared other Facebook Live videos I've done on how to take really good photos with your iPhone. And if you look at those, you'll see the flow and what I'm doing, and I'll post links to that. But basically, you're controlling the animal's eye line with the treat. So I shoot with one hand. This hand is holding the camera. This hand is holding a treat. And actually what I have in the palm of my hand, which I should have brought this stuff up. Okay, here's a crystal. Pretend this is a little squeaky toy that you get out of like a stuffed animal. So really what I'm doing is I have a little squeaky toy in my hand, a treat here, and then my other hand is my camera. And while I have my camera up, the dog is watching my fingers with the food. So if I go here, they're looking here. If I go here, they're looking here, up, down, okay? And then when they do that a couple times, I pay them, and we just keep doing that. And now to mix things up, while I have the little treat here, boop, boop, I'll squeak. Because you want to mix things up. Things that are new get old really fast, okay? So that's why I say bring different treats, mix the treats up if you think they're getting bored, and then surprise them. All of a sudden, whoop, and they're like, whoa, where did that funny little squeaky sound come from? And you can do that to control their eyes. The other thing I do, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen, is use your mouth. Use your mouth to make crazy sounds. So I go, that's simple. That's one. That's another one. And the one that I use a lot is the duck sound. Okay, so practice making crazy ass silly sounds with your mouth. Again, variety is key because you want to keep the element of surprise, okay? And just make as many crazy sounds as you can with your mouth. A couple other things I've seen people do, which I started doing too, is I bought little duck, like those little like plastic duck calls. So if you can't do a duck sound with your mouth, hi May, if you can't do it with your mouth, you want to do it with the little duck call thing, okay? And then the last trick I've seen people do is you can download like crazy cat meowing sounds or animal sounds on your phone and then give it to the owner. So now the owner can sort of help you control where the noise is coming from, and it keeps the animals really, hi guys, alert and awake. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, do you have any recommendations on how to improve your photography skills aside from regular practice? Okay, well here's the thing. Regular practice is 99% of this. You're going to need to practice, 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 and practice some more, because what that's doing is, first of all, you need to know your camera like the back of your hand. I shoot manual, which I highly recommend, and I also change focal points as I'm shooting. So if you look at a camera, there's like the center point, and then there's points all around it. And you really honestly want to be able to change that focal point as you're shooting, because it allows your photos to be a lot sharper and crisper. People ask me all the time, they ask me all the time, how are your pictures so tack sharp? Well, it's because I'm changing the focal point. What happens if you're only shooting with the center point and you're framing it up and then adjusting is it can sometimes cause your images to be a little bit soft. So learn your camera like the back of your hand. Be able to almost use it with your eyes closed. You know, you want to be able to change your f-stop quickly, change your focal point quickly, change your ISO quickly. All those things you want to be able to do almost in an instant. And you're not going to be able to learn to do that if you don't practice and know your camera really well. So it's hard to answer that question if I have any recommendations on how to improve your photo skills aside from regular practice, because regular practice is truly the most important thing. Aside from learning how to know your camera intimately, you're also developing your eye and your voice. I think a lot of the decisions I'm making as I'm shooting and my framing and what's in the photo and all those things, they're happening instantaneously. They are happening in seconds. They're happening reflexively. And that's just because, God, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've photographed probably thousands of dogs at this point, and it's second nature. You really want the act of photo taking to feel like second nature, because dogs move, cats too, animals move. You need to be able to keep up with them. Oh, well, I guess that's another point. You might want to be kind of physically fit, which is, I know, surprising. But when I first started doing pet photography 10 years ago, oh my God, I was shocked at how sore I would be the next day. I would feel like I got run over by a Mack truck, because it's really, really physical. You are following the animal with your camera. If the dog goes down, you go down. You know, if the dog goes this way, you go that way. So, you know, you had to be really agile. So, I don't know, go for walks, hit up the gym every once in a while, do some yoga, be physically fit. It'll help. Maybe you'll feel less shitty the next day. Number 4, how did you transition from your previous career to photography? Well, for those of you who don't know my story, I started as an art director in the ad industry, and I was doing ad campaigns for clients like Panda Express, Ford cars, Saturn cars, which is not even a brand anymore, but yeah, a lot of big ad campaigns, TV, print, outdoor, whatever, and it's really stressful. I don't know if you guys have watched Mad Men, but I couldn't watch that show for a very, very, very long time because it was just too close to home. It is totally a boys' club. The hours are freaking bananas crazy. You are just an idea factory. Your brain is going constantly, working late hours. I was stressed out. I was miserable. And I was like, I need to do something to make myself feel better on the weekends, or I just felt like I was going to die. I felt like I was dying a slow death. So I had just recently adopted my dog, Maybe, who is just my heart and soul. And I started taking photos of her and Zoe, who came, not too long after. And I realized, especially as an art director, realizing how visual people are and how making that visual connection with an animal online that needs to be adopted and just seeing it on the screen, it creates connection. And I thought, wow, this would be so cool to take really good photos of dogs and help them get adopted. And I put an ad on Craigslist saying, hey, anybody want to volunteer to take photos of your dogs? This amazing group called the Dog Squad responded, and I started taking headshots of these dogs to help them get adopted. This was in 2007, I believe. And believe it or not, adoptions went up. People saw these dogs online and were like, oh my God, I have to go meet this dog. And it was amazing to think that, wow, this photo, people see this photo and they want to go meet this dog, and now they're getting adopted. So from there, people started asking me if I could take photos of their own pets, which I said, of course, yes. And I started a website, and I had this business called Shine Pet Photos for a very long time, and it was a family pet photography business. And we can talk more about that. I think there's some questions about that in there, but that's really, how I started. From one career to the next, anybody can do it. If you guys are in a job that you don't like and you want to become a pet photographer, find a rescue group to volunteer with, or side hustle, just start building your portfolio. Ask everybody you know that has a dog or a cat and say, hey, I would love to photograph your pet for free. Would you mind if I could build my portfolio? I did the same. So I shot so many free photos for people for the sake of building my portfolio. And it's such a quick, easy way to start building up your work. Once you put up a portfolio on a website and you say you're a pet photographer, guess what? You're a pet photographer. It's that easy. So just start. Get your camera, start shooting. Okay, number 5. Oh, I just answered that question. Do you have any tips for someone trying to turn photography from a hobby into a business? Just start. Get over all the stuff you have going on in your head, telling you why you can't do it. Just start. Don't let gear get in your way, because you can take good photos with any camera. I started my business with a Canon Rebel. Okay, that's what they call a prosumer camera. So it's a little bit nicer than a point and shoot. It's actually a great camera, but it's not quite the level of professional. Hi, everybody waving at me. But I started with that camera. I think it was like, I don't know, $400. I shot a magazine cover with that camera. So please don't let something like gear stand in your way. You can rent cameras. There's companies like borrowlenses.com. You can find a neighborhood camera store. Just start. You can, what was I just saying? I don't know. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, you get the point, right? Just start, okay? And then from there, maybe get a Squarespace site. They're really easy to use and they're really, really cute. And there you go. You have a portfolio, you have a website, make a couple business cards, you're set. It's really that easy. Photography is great because it is so low risk in terms of how much money you need to get started. And when I quit my advertising job full-time to become a full-time pet photographer, people were like, you're crazy, you're nuts, that's so risky, that's so scary. And I honestly never thought it was that scary because I figured, well, I could go back to my day job if I need to. And, for people who want to start something like a restaurant, I mean, how much money do you need to start a restaurant? People invest their life savings to do stuff like that. To start a photography business is really just a couple $100s and your courage to start. I think you can do it if you want to. All right, moving on to the next question. This is from a husky named Kara. She said, you've gotten so many cool and famous clients. How do you network? And have you done things like Super Zoo? Okay, so when I started my pet photography business, I started looking out into my community and I tried to find businesses that had the same clientele that I did. So my photography wasn't cheap. My photography it felt very sort of a little bit elevated at the time. Remember, this is also 10 years ago, where pet lifestyle photography was not what it is today. Most people were just like kind of shooting down on the dog and people weren't included. It was, I don't know, it wasn't something that I felt fit my taste. And so I really started looking for other businesses and brands that had a very similar aesthetic and feel to mine. And you can do that with pet stores. You can do that with rescue groups. You can do that with vets. I mean, get doggy daycares, boarding, dog walkers. I mean, there's so many people out there who target the same clientele you do. And so if you want to start your pet photography business and start networking, do things like that. Ask them if you can refer customers back and forth. Ask if you can hang your work on their walls. Ask if, you can leave your business cards behind. Ask if, maybe they can offer a customer a free shoot. Brainstorm and just think of ways where you can get your name out there and where you can make relationships with people in your community. I think that is the best way to get your pet photography business off the ground. So some of you guys might know of a brand called Healthy Spot. Healthy Spot is amazing. If you've never been to one, I highly recommend you just get your booty over to one right now and check it out, because they started the same year I started in business in 2008. And at the time, I had never seen a pet store like theirs. I felt like I was walking into like a Bloomingdale's. Like, it was so clean and beautiful, and you just knew the quality was there. Their mission statement and their heart for everything was just so in alignment with what I wanted to do with my business. And so 10 years ago, we partnered up. I photographed their very first grand opening event for free, by the way. We can talk about that too, free work. I photographed a lot of their Halloween parties, a lot of their community initiatives that they were doing. I was there photographing. And 10 years later, I am where I am. They're at, I don't know, I think they have 16 stores now, which is kind of mind-blowing. And we are still partners, which is amazing. We totally cultivated this relationship, and it's been so cool to watch their business grow alongside my business. We ended up doing a photo series together that went viral. It was called the Harry series. And then we did more photos, and now it's all coming out in a book in October. So I highly encourage you to go look around in your community, see what other brands are out there that have the heart that you do and have the vision that you do, and figure out a way to partner up with them. I hope that answered your question, Allie, a husky named Kara. Okay, let's see. My next question is, how do you get animals to sit still? I kind of answered that, but if you're just tuning in now, how do you get an animal to sit still? It's really like dog training, okay? So positive reinforcement, dog training. If you don't know how to do that, watch some videos. But basically, it's this. Only give a treat to the dog when they are doing what is the behavior that you want, okay? So if a dog is barking at you, being all bossy and saying, give me treats, is that when you give him a treat? No, that is when you not give them a treat. No, and owners, I swear, they think I'm the dog whisperer, and they say, oh my God, my dog is doing all this stuff that they never do for me. And it's like, well, I'm kind of like the boss. You want to step, yeah, Julie, you want to be the boss, okay? You are the pack leader in the room, okay? And you are there with your very confident, strong, calm energy, and you are there to direct not just the dogs, but the owners too. Because the owners don't know what the heck they're doing. They're looking to you to guide them and direct them, especially when they're in the photos too. Because most people hate getting their photos taken, and me too. I hate photos. I don't know how to pose without looking like a moron. I need people to direct me, and wouldn't you want to be directed from somebody who talks like they know what they're talking about? Yes. So you want to be the strong, confident one in the room, because everyone's going to be looking to you as the pack leader. That strong, confident energy will help you so much with the dogs, because they need a strong, confident pack leader. And if you are strong and grounded and you are making it very clear to them, this is the behavior I need from you to get this done, they will respond. And the other thing I want to mention is that I never go into a shoot thinking like, I'm the boss of you and I'm going to make you do all this shit. That is never, ever what I do. I go in thinking this is a relationship where we're working together. So I might have the pack leader energy, right? And to me, that just pack leader energy to me is confidence, strength. and being calm, okay? But you also have to always remember that the only reason these photos are happening are because the animal in front of you chooses to. And that's really powerful. You are creating a connection and a relationship with this being in front of you. So just always remember that you guys are working together on this, and that yes, you are giving them treats to indicate to them that this is the behavior that I want and I'm looking for. But you also have to remember, like, they're doing this because they choose to, and you are here to capture something really special about them, and you have to keep it fun and motivating and engaging for them. So don't forget that this is a really almost soulful experience that you are creating with this animal, and remember that and treat it as that. Don't ever go in thinking I don't think any of you guys would. If you love animals, you wouldn't do this anyway, but I'm just gonna say it because I think it needs to be said. All right, NGT Chicone asks, what is your best apps editing tools for your photos? Okay, well, let me answer that. So I always shoot raw. When I'm shooting with my DSLR, I shoot raw. And I first upload them into Lightroom. So should I try flipping this and show you guys? Let's see. I have my computer right here. This is Lightroom. It's pretty cool. So these are all raw images. And yeah, you can use this to... This is pretty cool because you want to shoot raw because you get the most information in the file. Like if you really just screw up your picture while you're shooting and say all the highlights are blown out, or it's just like super underexposed or overexposed. I know this dog is so cute. Lightroom shooting raw will help you with that. But let me also say this, try to get your shot as good as you can in camera. Don't think, oh, I can just fix it in post. That is the worst. If you do that, let's try to start fixing that habit, okay? This is all about building good habits. So if you take a shot and you notice, oh, this would have been so cool, but it's just way too overexposed, do it again. I redo setups all the time to get the best shot. I don't just shoot and then pray I got something and then go home and look. I'm very, very intentional and looking at my shots and studying my shots as I go to make sure that I get what I need. So Lightroom is a really good tool because it overall allows you to, work on the exposure and the contrast highlights, all this stuff. It's cool because if your lighting conditions are the same throughout your shoot, which it's not going to be, but say you have like a little strip here of images. See all these pictures here, like shot here? They're all shot in the same conditions. So you can copy and paste, like you do it, you develop on one and then you just copy and paste the rest, which is awesome. It's really good, saves time. You can do stuff like that. And then the next thing I do is I will open the files up in Photoshop. So Photoshop, I like to use Photoshop for what I call pushing pixels, okay? So if you need to, and yes, you can do this in Lightroom too, but I'm just so used to doing it this way. This is what I do. But you can, I think with, I have a spot here, with Lightroom these days, there's like some cloning and other Photoshop-y type things you can do, but I do it in Photoshop. So I know this dog is so cute, right? You use Photoshop if say I hated this plant, which I don't, I really like it, but if you want to take it out, you could use Photoshop for that. Say, for example, this face is adorable, but pretend it wasn't, and I saw a face in another shot, I could copy from here and paste it onto here. So it's really good for moving pixels around. I also use Photoshop for things like, bringing out the shadow and things and bringing out the highlights and things and really just adding some dimensionality to my pictures. So Photoshop and Lightroom all the way. Now, if you're talking about, if you're talking about your phone, my favorite phone app is Google Snapseed. First of all, it's free. It's kind of crazy because it's such a robust app. It has so much amazing stuff you can do and it's free. So I think it's free. So that is that. Next question. How long have we been doing this? This is 28 minutes. Time is flying by. Okay, Holly Montgomery, hi. She has a question. She says, when you shoot indoors in homes, how do you ensure there is enough light? Do you use extra lighting? If you go into a client's home and their home is not well lit, what do you do? Your photos always look so bright. Yes, they do. I love bright, happy, colorful pictures. And so this is a very, very good question. You know, when I was doing my family pet photography business called Shine Pet Photos, I didn't even have a phone number on my website at the time because I hate talking on the phone with people. So I did everything over email. And so not only am I meeting the clients for the first time when I arrive for the shoot, hearing their voice for the first time, I'm also seeing their home for the very first time. So unless you spend the time to do like a scout, which I don't know, that's kind of like a lot. Yeah, right. It's a lot of work. You're walking sight unseen into an environment where you're meeting a brand new person, brand new dog, and finding a brand new house. It is your job to find the best light in the house, okay? Sometimes the most perfect room with the perfect furniture doesn't get light. Light is always king. It doesn't matter how cute a room is. If the light is bad, you're gonna get a bad photo, okay? Go in the house. I always, as soon as I walk in and after I do my thing, meeting the dog and getting to know the dog, the next thing I say is, can you give me a tour of your house so we can figure out where we're gonna shoot? And I'm really paying attention to where the windows are. And that is really a way to get good light. Find where the windows are. Window light going onto couches or beds is beautiful. But the other thing is I'm staging people's houses as I'm shooting too. Yes, if you walk into a house where everything is perfect, God bless you, you're lucky, okay? But a lot of times you're gonna walk into a house where the lighting is less than ideal and you're gonna just have to make it work. So if there's a corner that gets really great window light, drag a chair over there, get an end table, find a plant from a room and plop it on the table and make that corner look fucking awesome. Make it look as cute as you can and go for it. That's what I do throughout the whole house, looking for good light. And then you can always go outside. So that's the other option too. But that's step one, find good light. Step two, cameras these days have amazing ISO. So if you get into a house where you have the window light and you did as much as you could, you dragged everything where it needed to be placed, and it's still too dark, crank up your ISO. I only say this for family photographers because most clients are not gonna know the difference between a photo that's a little bit grainy and not. And it's more important to a client that you capture that moment than it is if there's a slightly more grain than they would even recognize. Plus, you're gonna be shooting raw, right? Because we already talked about that. You're gonna shoot raw and then you're gonna bring it into Lightroom and you can play with the noise there. I say all this with a grain of salt because there's gonna be a point where you go too far over and then it's unusable. So this is where practice comes into play. Keep practicing, get to know your camera, get to know the limits on your camera, get to know how far you can push the ISO before the shots become unusable. Experiment and see how far can I push it, bring that raw file into Lightroom and then see, well, how much can I fix this without things looking kind of weird. But on a commercial job, I never ever shoot above 1000 ISO because with a job like that, file quality is so important, especially because a lot of times these images are getting blown up to billboard size or bus shelter size. And when you do something like that, yes, that tiny little grain of noise is now magnified and it's gonna show. But if you are a family photographer, it's not gonna matter as much. You know, just play around and get to know your gear and see what your limits are. So I really hope that answered. Oh, you know what? I forgot a question. Do I use extra lighting? when I'm doing family photography shoots, no, I don't. I think that it really adds another level of something that the animal needs to get used to. My whole thing when I'm shooting is I just want to capture images that are as natural and authentic to the animal as possible. And a lot of times if you have strobes and all these things firing, it's kind of like really disruptive to that. But what I didn't mention is I do bring a reflector. It's a collapsible folding reflector. That's awesome. If you don't use a reflector, try it. Go on Google, go on YouTube, watch videos. Actually, I have a video of me showing how I use a reflector outside that I can share if you're interested. But a reflector is basically just bouncing light. So you're trying to just get more light onto an animal in a space where there isn't that much light. So reflector helps a lot too. I see you guys are asking a lot of questions as I'm speaking, and I will try my best to get to those, but I still have a bunch of questions I have to get through. Okay. So let's see. Next question. Why don't you go by photographer? Ha ha ha. That was cute. Let's see. How did you make the transition from an everyday pet photographer to commercial work? Good question. This is actually how it really happened, and you're probably going to hate me for this answer, but they came to me. My very first commercial job, I was actually on set freelancing as an art director doing a cell phone commercial. And I got a call from an art director at Fallon who said she wanted me to shoot her Purina campaign. And it was a 3-day job. And when I got the call, I really almost wanted to poop my pants. If you don't know Fallon, Fallon is one of the top creative ad agencies in the country, and I was shocked that I got this call. So they came to me. That is literally how my commercial animal photography career happened. But I will tell you this. The reason why that was able to happen, I didn't even have gracechon.com. I didn't have my commercial photography website. I had my family photography website, shinepetphotos.com. And the art director contacted me from that website. But the reason why that even happened was because I was fucking ready for that opportunity, okay? I had been working my butt off for 10 years, photographing images that I thought were awesome. And you know what? I'm gonna be super confident. I loved my pictures. I thought they were fucking awesome. I felt like I was doing something a little bit different than other pet photographers were doing at the time. And, you know, I had very, very high standards for my work and for myself. And, you know, like I had mentioned earlier, you know, as I'm shooting, I'm constantly shooting and adjusting, trying to make the photo better. If I'm shooting and there's something in the background that I don't think is helping the photo, I will stop shooting and move it. I'm constantly, you know, doing things. And so by the time this art director at Fallon found me and reached out to me, yes, I was still a family pet photographer, but goddamn, my work was good because I worked my butt off to make it that way. So I hope that's encouragement for you too, that you have to be ready when that day comes. You might not be a commercial photographer now, but someday, some agency, some art director sees your work and is like, I need that person to photograph this next campaign. Your work has got to be ready. That person is going to call you because that foundation you had been laying down up to that point was amazing, okay? So have very high standards for yourself. Shoot as much as you can. Really try to add stuff in your work that is you, but also things that maybe you're not seeing in other people's work that you want. So constantly push yourself to do better. Let's see. Okay, how do you take a great picture of a black pet? What settings do you use? That's a good question, but there is no magic setting for how to take a good picture of a black pet because, you know, there's so many variables involved and it's all about light. So lighting conditions change all the time, so there isn't some magic f-stop setting that you need to do, okay? But this is what I would tell you to do is We talked about shooting manual. You want to shoot manual. And the first point for me that I'm always adjusting is the f-stop, because to me, that is a major part of the story I want to tell. How sharp do I want the picture to be? Or how blurry do I want the picture to be? And go from there. So say you have a black dog, and I'm going to decide f-stop 2.8, okay? I'm going to set that first. Now the next thing I adjust is my shutter speed. Shutter speed is so important with pet photography if you want your photos to be sharp, because if your shutter is not fast enough, your photo is going to be blurry, especially because animals like to move, right? So you need to have your shutter fast enough to capture that movement and freeze it. So usually I'd say I don't like my shutter speed to be any slower than 1/250, and even that's pretty slow. But you know, maybe go 1/300, play around, right? Or in that range, take a shot and see what your photo looks like. If it's too dark and the dog still looks too black, that's when I start going into my ISO and adjusting my ISO to match the other two variables. And a lot of times people will do this with the light meters. So you can get light meters that will, and you'll hold it up to the dog's face, and then it'll expose for the dog's face. And then the light meter will give you a reading, and it'll tell you, okay, now you need to make your shutter speed this and your ISO this, and it'll pump it all out. But I just don't like having to carry around extra gear. So I just do it myself really quick. I set the f-stop that I like, kind of estimate where I think the shutter speed will be, and then I adjust the ISO, and that has never failed me. Okay, oh, so many questions. Let's see, what else is there? Where do you get your white backdrop, and what are those papers called? That's a good question. So that paper is called Seamless. It comes in a big roll. So if you want to do that, you can get that anywhere from Amazon or B&H Photo or your local camera store. I like going into my local camera store because they usually have all the paper and you can see it in person. Sometimes it's really hard to guess based on the color swatch online on your screen. So in LA, we have Sammy's Camera, and I go to Sammy's Camera and get my Seamless paper. Do majority of your clients prefer to do sessions at their home or in the studio? When I started my family pet photography business called Shine Pet Photos 10 years ago, I always said, let's pick a location that really tells the animal's story. And that's usually in a favorite spot. So home, backyard, favorite park. And majority of clients would choose that because they really wanted to capture images that told the dog's story as intimately as possible. But a lot of people live in small apartments, or they're dark. So the other thing that I did was I scouted locations all over Los Angeles, from the east side to the south bay. No, not really the south bay, just kidding. East side to west side, and outdoor parks, places with beautiful walls. And I gathered them up in a list for people and showed them, you know, if you don't want to shoot at home or you can't, here's some really awesome outdoor options for you to choose from. And people love doing that. So I would do shoots in Chinatown, Griffith Park, the Arts District in LA. And I think that was a really great tool for clients because they were able to see visually what these places looked like. It's different than just describing it with words. If they can see examples of photos, I think that's really helpful. So as far as the studio thing, I didn't do studio work when I first started because I really wanted it to be environmental and tell the dog's story. But I know a lot of photographers that do both. So if you like to do both, why not do both? What do you recommend for lighting equipment when just starting out? I mentioned earlier that I really don't like bringing in big lights for pets because it just adds this other new scary element for the animal that they have to get used to. But I did shoot with a really simple lighting setup when I would have events or I wanted to do fundraisers, or, you know, I just wanted to do more studio looking stuff on Seamless. So that was really simple. I got a speed light and I got some pocket wizards and I got an umbrella and I got a reflector. So basically your studio looks like you have the Seamless set up in the back, and then on one side you have an umbrella with your speed light pointed at it, okay? So the light is actually bouncing into the umbrella, bouncing back on the dog. On the other side, you have a reflector set up. So that light that's bouncing out is also being reflected back. So it's so simple. It was one light, just a couple things I needed to buy, and the photos turned out really good. I actually had studio shots on my website done that way for a very long time, and I won a lot of jobs just with that simple setup. It's not anything I made up. I found it on Google like 10 years ago, so there's so much information online, it's ridiculous. So you could Google one light setup or, you know, shooting with a speed light. What I just described is an off-camera method of using the speed light. But the other thing you could play around with is if you shoot it on your camera, if you shoot with it on your camera, and then you play around with where the light is bouncing. So for example, you can shoot, if you want sort of a more diffused look, which is what I prefer because I think the lighting looks a little bit more natural, you would take the shot and have the flash hit the ceiling and then come back down, and you just kind of like play around with where the light is hitting and how is it going back to the dog. And also at the time, I don't know if this guy still makes these, but there was a thing called a Gary Fong diffuser, and it was like this, it looked almost like a plastic takeout container, but was kind of opaque, and you would put it on your light so that when the flash went off, it would diffuse the light. So there are lots of little options you could do. When I'm on set now, we use Pro Photo lights, which are pretty expensive and heavy duty. But another type of lights that I know people use that are more intermediate are called alien bees. I've never used them personally, but I know a lot of people that have and really liked them. So I think those are some good options. Let's see. Okay. We got to all the questions from earlier, so I'm going to just scroll through really quick and see if you guys asked any questions. And if you have more as I'm doing this, please feel free to jump in, because I saw a couple questions coming through. Okay, let's see. Where are you? Questions? What lenses do I use? Okay, that's a really good one. I'm not really into gear. I know that sounds weird as a photographer. I feel like I should be, but I have always been more about my eye, and my gear is just this tool that I'm using to help me. So the lenses that I love are very simple. There's only 3 of them, and that's all I shoot with, and all of them are pretty short distance because, as I had mentioned very early on in this video, I like to work with the animal and make a connection with the animal. So I like them to be arm distance from me. I want to be able to reach out and pet them and tell them they're so cute and pretty, or feed them the little treat. So a lot of people like shooting with big zoom lenses. I know the 85 is a really popular portrait lens. People love photographing dogs with a 200, and that's great for doing action shots if you're further away and you're shooting with like a 200mm lens. For me personally, I really like the 50 because it is just classic, standard, beautiful lens. And believe it or not, the 50 1.4, which is, I don't know, a couple $100, is a great lens. The 50 1.2 is a little bit more expensive. I think it's in the thousands, but the 1.4 is really good. And here's another tip, nifty 50. The 50 1.8 is amazing, and it's like $80 or something. And so if you're used to just shooting with your iPhone or with a point and shoot, and you get one of these 50 millimeters and you get to play with what it's like to shoot at 1.4 or 1.8, it's magical because you get to start getting that beautiful buttery bokeh in the background. So 50 is my favorite go-to standard lens. I also love the 35, which it feels a little bit more documentary because it's slightly wider than the 50. So I use that a lot, you know, if I want to capture a little bit more in the room, or if I want to just, you know, get a portrait that feels slightly more wide angle. All these decisions that you make tell the story. So if the point of the shot is about, you know, getting the animal's environment in the room because I want to tell their story, I'm going to go with the wider lens. So the next lens that I really like for that purpose especially is the 16 to 35. And that's just so fun. I love that lens. You can get just so much of the environment in the shot. And I love taking photos where it's very distorted and their face is all big in the camera and their nose looks huge. And the 16-35 is really great for that. Oh, I said 3 lenses, there's 4. The last lens that I really like is the 24-70, because I can, you know, get that zoom aspect and I can also get the wide angle with the 24. So those are my favorite lenses. We're coming to the end of this, you guys, so if you have more questions, please jump in and ask because we're almost all out of time. How did you classify your clients today? Are they families or business? Okay, so I think what Manuela is asking is, you know, what are my clients like today? They're mostly business, meaning I'm shooting mostly for advertising agencies and brands and magazines versus family photos. I'm just gonna be real, that pays way better. And I'm a mom, I have a 5-year-old. So I retired officially from my family business, Shine Pet Photos, in 2014 when my son was 1 year old, because I was getting a lot of commercial photography business, and you know, you work a lot less, you get paid a lot more, and it just gave me more time to be a mom. But the other thing I'm also doing more of, I've actually even transitioned away from the commercial work a lot lately. I had an agent, I was with her for 3 years and we parted ways because I really want to focus on my own artwork. I realized that the work I like the most is not what I'm shooting for Fancy Feast. It's not what I'm shooting for Purina. It's the work that I'm creating on my own. That was the Zoe and Jasper series. That was, you know, the Harry series with the dog grooming. It's work that, I don't know, that's the stuff that lights me up. And so I really want to spend more time doing that, but I won't be saying no to commercial jobs because they're fun too. Steph asks, do you ever worry about getting hurt at a client's home? I don't know if you mean hurt physically or like if the dog is going to hurt me, but I've never worried about that. But it's a good question because if you're going to be a business, you have to act like a business. So get insurance. You want to get business insurance to cover liability and to cover all your stuff, like if your house gets broken into and your camera and lenses are all gone. So yeah, cover yourself, protect yourself, get business. I've never been worried about getting hurt. I've had people ask me if I ever get worried about getting bit by a dog or a cat. And that's also not anything I've ever been afraid of, because I haven't talked about this, and maybe this is something we'll talk about another time, but I really think so much about really good pet photography is the energy you are bringing to the table. Like the minute you step in the room, the energy should change, and you are the one creating that change. And there are a lot of things that I would do to get my head and my body in the right place to be shooting. And like I said, we can talk about it another time, but just really quick, visualize the best outcome for the shoot. When you're driving to the shoot, spend that time intentionally. Imagine walking into this house and having an amazing connection with the animal. Imagine walking into the house and having an amazing connection with the owners. Because when you do that, you are starting off in a good place. If you are bringing your anxiety and your worries and your fears into the room with you, do you know who the first being is that's going to notice that? It's the animal. Animals are so perceptive and they know and feel things. So you want to bring your best, most grounded, calm energy with you when you walk into a space, because the animal is going to respond to that. And then the owners are going to respond to that too. Okay, you guys. Oh, can you tell? Oh, hi, Chris. Can you tell a fun shoot story? You must have tons of them. Okay, I'll tell you two. From family photo Grace and commercial photo Grace. But I once did a shoot in Palos Verdes, and Christine, if you're watching this, I'm talking about you. I did a shoot in this beautiful mid-century modern home with the most amazing furniture, and there was kids involved. So there was 3 dogs and 2 kids. One was a baby, I think he was walking around without a diaper on, and the baby just peed everywhere. And it just felt like total controlled chaos, because you had the chaos of the dogs running around, you had the chaos of this toddler running around, and now suddenly there's a baby with no diaper peeing on the floor. I had an assistant with me that day, thank God. That helped, but there's that story. A more recent story was I went to upstate New York to do a shoot with Women's Day magazine, and it was in August, I think. So if you're from the East Coast, you know what that means. It was hot and it was sticky and it was disgusting, and I was shooting for a rescue group, and we had to set up a studio in the basement where they did all their laundry, and it was dark and hot. And our model for the day was the amazing Clinton Kelly. If you don't know who he is, he was on the show What Not to Wear for a very long time, and he was also most recently on a show called The Chew on ABC, and he's also one of the editors of Women's Day magazine. So he came as the talent with his dog Mary, who he had rescued from the rescue group we were shooting at. And like I said, it was August, it was hot as balls, and Clinton Kelly had to wear a cashmere sweater, and he was such a good sport. He was in this basement, sitting on the seamless with not just his dog, but all these other rescue dogs, wearing these hot-ass cashmere sweaters. He rocked it. I did not hear him complain once. And he was so nice and gracious to everybody, even though I know he was probably really hot as shit. So Clinton Kelly, you'll never watch this, but if you do, I admire and respect you so much, because you were awesome that day. Oh, wait, Safi? Oh, I missed the first part of your question, so if you're watching this, I'm not sure. Oh, would love to hear. Okay, I don't know. I think that's everything, you guys. If there isn't any more questions, then we're gonna get going. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was useful. I hope you'll go out there and start shooting amazing pictures. Please message me or email me or DM me if you have any other questions, and we can do this again sometime. I hope you guys have an amazing, awesome day, and I will see you next time. Bye.